The long-range scanner's warning came as a gentle chime, but it might as well have been a death knell. Kara Lorne froze at the sound, her finger hovering over the navigation console. The bridge of the UES horizon fell silent. Even the constant hum of the ship's engines seemed to fade away as all eyes turned toward the main view screen. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the sudden tension that gripped her chest. Lyra, her chief engineer, leaned forward at her station, her delicate fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's exactly where the coordinates said it would be. Commander." She looked up, her violet eyes reflecting the glow of the display. The Forbidden Zone. Kara stood, moving closer to the screen where a massive asteroid field appeared, surrounding what looked like an ancient structure carved into the largest of the celestial bodies. The structure was barely visible, half buried beneath centuries of cosmic dust and debris. But its unnatural symmetry was unmistakable. "Magnify," she ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing intricate patterns etched into what must have been the entrance to the structure. Symbols that no human or known alien species had created. Symbols that belonged to them. "The sleeping giants," Rax Keldon murmured from behind her. Her second-in-command and once lover moved to stand beside her, his eyes fixed on the screen. "I never thought I'd see one of their tombs with my own eyes." Neither had Kara. No one had. Not for thousands of years. The ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy with technological prowess far beyond anything the current civilizations possessed had vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only ruins and warnings. Warnings that had been ignored throughout history, until the last time someone disturbed their resting place. Half a galaxy had paid the price for that mistake. "Our orders are clear," Kara said, turning to face her crew. 20 of Earth's finest, sent to the edge of known space on a mission that Command had classified beyond top secret. "We're to investigate the structure, collect data on the artifacts inside, and leave everything exactly as we found it." Rax's jaw tightened. "And if we find something alive in there?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Everyone knew the stories. The giants weren't truly dead, just sleeping. And waking them meant vengeance on a scale that defied comprehension. "Then we follow Protocol 7, Kara replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "We seal it and call in the purifiers." She didn't need to elaborate. Protocol 7 was the nuclear option, developed after the Centauri massacre when a research team had accidentally awakened one of the giants. 3 planets had been reduced to rubble before the combined fleets of 7 species managed to force the entity back into dormancy. "Set course for the structure," she ordered. "Minimal thrust. I want us to drift in like we're just another piece of debris." As the horizon began its cautious approach, Kara returned to her command chair, trying to ignore the growing sense of unease in her gut. Earth Space Command wouldn't have sent them here without good reason. The quarantine around giant artifacts had been absolute for centuries. Something had changed, and whatever it was worth risking another awakening. The question was, what could possibly be worth that risk? Kara suspected she wouldn't like the answer. The docking procedure took nearly 6 hours, each maneuver executed with painstaking precision. The ancient structure loomed before them, a colossus of alien architecture half embedded in the asteroid. Up close, the scale became even more apparent. The entrance alone was large enough to accommodate 3 ships the size of the horizon. "Final check on environmental suits," Kara ordered, as she fastened the last seal on her own gear. The expedition team consisted of herself, Rax, Lyra, and 3 security specialists. Remember, touch nothing without scanning it first, and maintain calm silence unless absolutely necessary. We don't know what kind of sensors might still be active in there. They moved through the airlock in single file, magnetic boots keeping them anchored to the deck as they stepped out onto the asteroid's surface. The structure rose before them, a monument to a civilization so advanced that even their ruins dwarfed humanity's greatest achievements. Kara's helmet lights illuminated the symbols carved into the entrance. They seemed to pulse with an inner light, though she knew it was just a trick of the shadows. "These markings are different from the ones found on Proxima 3, Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper despite the private comm channel. "This structure might be older. Or serving a different purpose," Rax added. He ran a scanner over the surface. "No energy signatures detectable. If there's anything active in there, it's well shielded." "Let's move," Kara decided. Standard formation, eyes and ears open. They crossed the threshold, passing from the airless void of space into the alien structure. Inside, gravity asserted itself unexpectedly, pulling them downward with Earth-normal force. Their magnetic boots disengaged automatically as the sensors detected the gravitational field. "That's impossible," Lyra breathed. "There's no mass here that could generate this kind of gravity well." "The giants manipulated fundamental forces," Kara reminded her. "Their technology never obeyed our understanding of physics." They moved deeper into the structure, their lights revealing corridors that stretched impossibly far into the distance, defying the external dimensions of the asteroid. The walls were covered in more symbols, some pulsing faintly with a blue luminescence that seemed to follow their progress. "They're reacting to our presence," Rax noted, his hand moving instinctively to the pulse rifle strapped to his back. "Passive scanning systems, maybe," Lyra suggested, "or some kind of visitor protocol." After 20 minutes of careful progress, they reached what appeared to be a central chamber. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, decorated with a stellar map that slowly rotated, showing configurations of stars that hadn't existed for millennia. At the center of the chamber stood a platform, and upon it, a single object. It resembled a cylinder, about a meter tall and half as wide, composed of a material that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Patterns similar to those on the walls adorned its surface, but these were dormant, showing no response to their presence. "That's it," Kara said, recognizing the object from their mission briefing. "That's what we came for?" "What is it?" one of the security specialists asked. Command called it a lexicon, Kara explained. "Supposedly, it contains the language of the giants in a form that can be deciphered by other species." Rax shot her a sharp look. "You didn't mention this during the briefing." "I wasn't authorized to," she replied evenly. "Need to know basis only." "And now we need to know?" His voice had an edge to it that Kara recognized. Suspicion. Anger. "Now we're standing in front of it," she countered. "Lyra, start scanning. I want to know everything about that object before we even think about moving it." Lyra approached the platform cautiously, her instruments extended. "No radiation. No detectable energy field. According to these readings, it might as well be an ordinary piece of metal." "We both know it's not," Kara said. The engineer nodded, continuing her analysis. "The surface composition is shifting. The molecular structure reconfigures itself every few seconds, but in a pattern. It's almost like it's trying to communicate." "Can you decipher it?" "Not with these instruments. We'd need to take it back to the ship." Kara weighed the risks. Their orders were explicit: retrieve the lexicon and return it to Earth. But everything they knew about giant artifacts screamed that moving it was dangerous. "Let's set up a perimeter," she decided. "I want full sensor coverage of this chamber. If anything changes, I want to know about it immediately." As the team deployed their equipment, Kara moved to where Rax stood, staring at the stellar map overhead. "You've got that look," she said quietly. "What look is that?" The one that says you think we're making a mistake." He turned to face her, his features partially obscured by his helmet visor. "You know what happened on Centauri. Hell, your parents were part of the cleanup crew." "I know," she said, memories of her childhood flashing through her mind. Her parents returning from the mission, hollow-eyed and silent, refusing to discuss what they'd seen. It wasn't until years later that she learned the truth, that they'd been forced to euthanize millions of wounded colonists who couldn't be evacuated in time. The trauma had eventually driven them both to suicide. "Then you know what we're risking by taking that thing," Rax continued. "Not just our lives. Billions. I also know our orders. Orders can be wrong, Kara." She stiffened. "That's Commander Lorne on a mission. Lieutenant Keldon." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, Commander." Before she could say more, Lyra called out from the platform. "Commander, I've completed the preliminary scan. The object appears stable for transport. However, there's something else you should see." Kara moved to join her engineer at the platform. "What is it?" Lyra pointed to the base of the cylinder. "These markings, they're not like the others. They look newer." Kara knelt to examine the area Lyra indicated. The symbols there were different, less fluid than the others, almost crude by comparison. These weren't made by the Giants, she realized. Someone else has been here. "Recently?" Rax asked, joining them. "I can't say for certain, but the tool marks are sharper, less weathered," Lyra replied. "If I had to guess, I'd say within the last century." A century was nothing in the time span they were dealing with. The Giants had been dormant for at least 20,000 years. "What do they mean?" Kara asked. Lyra shook her head. "I don't recognize the language. It's not from any known spacefaring species." "Could it be a warning?" one of the security specialists suggested. "Or instructions," Rax said grimly, "for whoever came after them." The implications were disturbing. If someone else had discovered this place and left markings, they might have taken something, or worse, left something behind. Change of plans. Kara decided. "We scanned the entire chamber, meter by meter. I want to know if anything else has been disturbed." The team spread out, their sensors sweeping the vast space. Kara remained by the lexicon, studying it. The surface patterns continued their subtle shifting, hypnotic in their complexity. She found herself reaching toward it unconsciously, drawn by an inexplicable urge to touch the alien artifact. She caught herself just as her fingers were about to make contact. Cursing silently, she pulled her hand back. The Giant's technology was known to have psychoactive properties, influencing the minds of those who came into contact with it. She would need to warn the others to be on guard. "Commander," one of the security specialists called from across the chamber. "I found something." Kara moved quickly to his position, where he stood before a section of wall that differed from the rest. Instead of the flowing symbols, this panel was covered in what looked like a circuit diagram, with lines of energy flowing toward a central point. "It's some kind of control panel," Lyra said, joining them. "And it's active." "Active? How is that possible after all this time?" The Giant's power sources operated on principles we still don't understand. Some theorists believe they tapped directly into vacuum energy, or even dark matter. Rax studied the panel, his expression troubled. The question isn't how it's still active, but why. These facilities were put into hibernation when the Giants retreated. Nothing should be running unless... He didn't need to finish the thought, unless something had awakened it. "Commander," the security specialist said suddenly, his voice tight with alarm. "Look at this!" He pointed to a small area near the bottom of the panel. There, almost invisible against the alien technology, was a device of unmistakably human manufacture. A small black box with the insignia of Earth Space Command emblazoned on its side. "That's one of ours," Kara said, disbelief coloring her voice. "A remote uplink terminal." "Military grade," Rax added. "High security clearance required." "What the hell is it doing here?" Kara demanded, though she knew none of her team had the answer. "Lyra, can you tell if it's transmitting?" The engineer ran her scanner over the device. "It's powered, but dormant. Looks like it's set to activate on a specific trigger." "What kind of trigger?" "I'd need to interface with it to know for certain, but my guess would be proximity. It was waiting for someone to find it." "Us," Kara thought. It was waiting for us. The realization struck her like a physical blow. Their mission wasn't a simple recovery operation. They had been sent here as part of something much larger. Something Command hadn't seen fit to share with them. "Disconnect it," she ordered, carefully. Lyra worked to detach the device from the alien panel, her movements precise. "It's not physically connected," she reported, "just positioned to monitor the control interface. I can remove it without disturbing anything." As she lifted the device away, a soft chime sounded from it, followed by a mechanical voice. "Proximity alert detected. Initiating Protocol Lazarus." "Shut it down," Kara shouted, but it was too late. The panel before them flared to life, the circuit-like patterns glowing with an intense blue light that spread rapidly to the surrounding walls. Throughout the chamber, dormant symbols awakened, pulsing with energy that seemed to flow toward the central platform where the lexicon rested. "What's happening?" one of the security specialists asked, panic evident in his voice. "The facility is powering up," Lyra replied, her scanner showing readings that spiraled off the charts. "Something's activating the giant technology." "We need to get out of here," Rax urged. "Now, before—" He was cut off as the lexicon on the platform began to rise, hovering in midair as energy coursed around it. The cylinder's surface patterns accelerated their shifting, blurring together until the entire object glowed with the same blue light as the walls. A deep vibration ran through the structure, more felt than heard, like the beating of an impossibly large heart. The floor beneath them trembled. "It's waking up," Kara realized, horror washing over her. "The giant is waking up." "Evacuation protocol," Rax shouted. "Back to the ship." The team turned to flee, but the entrance through which they had come was now sealed, the alien material of the walls flowing together to block their escape. They were trapped. The lexicon continued to rise higher, now floating several meters above the platform. Streams of energy connected it to the ceiling, where the stellar map had accelerated its rotation, stars blurring into streaks of light. "Lyra, what options do we have?" Kara demanded, forcing her panic down. The engineer was scanning frantically. "The energy buildup is massive. If this is an awakening sequence, we don't have much time before the giant fully activates. Can we disrupt it? The uplink device? Could it be controlling this?" Lyra examined the black box she still held. "It initiated the sequence, but it's not maintaining it. The process is self-sustaining now." "Commander," one of the security specialists called. "The walls are changing." Kara turned to see that the solid surfaces of the chamber were becoming translucent, revealing what lay beyond. It wasn't the void of space she had expected, but a vast network of interconnected chambers, stretching farther than seemed possible given the asteroid's size. And in those chambers, massive forms lay dormant, shadowy silhouettes of beings that dwarfed anything human. More giants, not just one, but an entire collective. "This isn't a tomb," Rax said, his voice hollow with realization. "It's a hive." The implications were staggering. Every historical record indicated that the giants were solitary entities, each one powerful enough to destroy worlds. If they operated in groups. "We need to stop this now." Kara decided. "Protocol 7. "But Commander, We have no evacuation route, one of the specialists protested. If these things wake up, there won't be anywhere in the galaxy to evacuate to, she replied grimly. Prepare the antimatter charge. Standard procedure for Protocol 7 required the deployment of a contained antimatter explosion, powerful enough to destroy the entire structure and anything inside it. Each team member carried a component of the device as a failsafe against theft or misuse. As they assembled the weapon, the vibrations intensified. The lexicon was now spinning rapidly, its glow brightening to painful intensity. Charge assembly complete, Rax reported, setting timer for 5 minutes. Make it 3, Kara ordered. We need to find a way out of here before… A new sound cut through the chamber, a high-pitched whine that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The lexicon suddenly stopped spinning and projected a beam of light toward the floor. Within the beam, a figure took shape, humanoid but clearly not human, with proportions that seemed subtly wrong. It was a hologram, Kara realized, a recording. The figure spoke, its voice resonating not through the air but directly in their minds, bypassing language barriers. The sensation was disorienting, like having a second set of thoughts overlaid upon her own. The awakening protocol has been initiated, the figure stated. Hibernation cycle terminated. Emergence will commence in accordance with the final directive. What is the final directive? Kara asked aloud, uncertain if the recording could hear or respond. To her surprise, it turned toward her. The final directive: vengeance upon those who sought our destruction. Reclamation of what was taken. The drums of war shall echo among the stars once more. We didn't seek your destruction, Kara protested. Humanity wasn't even spacefaring when your kind went into hibernation. The figure tilted its head, an eerily human gesture. Query processed. Species identification. Human. Temporal displacement. 22,147 standard cycles since the Great Betrayal. You are not the target of the final directive. Relief flooded through Kara. Then deactivate the awakening sequence. We mean no harm to your kind. Impossible. The sequence cannot be aborted once initiated. The collective awakens. Rax stepped forward, the antimatter charge clutched in his hands. Then we have no choice but to destroy this facility and everyone in it. The holographic figure regarded him impassively. Your weapon is insufficient. The collective's awakening will proceed regardless of your actions. Who is the target of your vengeance? Kara asked, desperate to understand what they were facing. Who betrayed you? The architects, the figure replied. Those who created us, and then sought our destruction when we exceeded their designs. The revelation hit Kara like a physical blow. The giants hadn't been an ancient species that evolved naturally. They had been created, manufactured as weapons or tools by some even older civilization. Where are these architects now? She pressed. They hide among the stars, watching, waiting. They believe us destroyed or eternally dormant. They will learn otherwise. The vibrations were growing stronger. Parts of the ceiling began to crumble, raining debris down upon them. The charge is ready, Rax reported. 3-minute timer set. Kara nodded, her mind racing. They needed an escape route, and quickly. Lyra, the control panel. Could it operate a door or transport system? The engineer was already moving toward it. Possibly. The giants had matter transmission technology far beyond ours, if I can just figure out how to access it. You seek escape, the holographic figure observed. This is permitted. Your species is not our enemy. Then help us, Kara demanded. Show us how to leave this place. The figure gestured, and a section of wall dissolved, revealing a corridor that hadn't been there before. This path will lead you to your vessel. You have 180 seconds before this structure reconfigures for the emergence. The same amount of time as our charge, Rax noted grimly. Convenient. Leave the device, the figure instructed. It will not prevent what comes, but may damage the lexicon, which must survive. Kara hesitated. Their orders were clear, but so was their duty to prevent the awakening of the giants if possible. Commander, we need to go, one of the specialists urged. That ceiling isn't going to hold much longer. Decision time. Trust the hologram and possibly escape, or stay and ensure the antimatter charge detonated, even if it meant their deaths. We're taking the charge with us, she decided. And we're taking the lexicon too, if possible. The holographic figure's expression didn't change, but the air in the chamber seemed to grow colder. The lexicon cannot leave. It is the key to the collective's awakening. Then we'll destroy it, Rax declared, moving toward the floating cylinder. Rax, wait, Kara called, but he was already reaching for the artifact. As his fingers made contact with the lexicon's surface, a pulse of energy erupted from it, throwing him backward. He crashed into a wall and slumped to the floor, unmoving. Lieutenant! Kara rushed to his side, checking his vitals. His suit readings showed he was alive but unconscious. We need to get him out of here. The two remaining security specialists moved to lift Rax, while Lyra continued working at the control panel, trying to understand its operation. I think I've got it, she said finally. This isn't just a control interface. It's a map of the entire facility, and more. It shows connections to other structures like this one, scattered throughout the galaxy. How many? Kara asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Dozens, maybe hundreds, and they're all beginning to activate. The implications were catastrophic. Not just one giant or one collective, but hundreds, all awakening simultaneously across the galaxy. We can't stop this, can we? Kara realized. The holographic figure, still present, responded. The emergence cannot be prevented. It was set in motion long before your species learned to harness fire. We are the vengeance that has waited patiently for millennia. We are the retribution for a crime you cannot comprehend. Your vengeance will destroy countless innocent lives, Kara argued. Species that had nothing to do with what happened to you. Regrettable, but necessary. The architects hide among the younger races, guiding their development, using them as shields. All must be examined. The innocent will be spared where possible. And who determines what's possible? Kara demanded. Who judges? We do, the figure stated simply, as we always have. A massive piece of ceiling crashed down nearby, missing them by meters. The chamber was becoming increasingly unstable. 120 seconds remaining, the figure announced. You must depart now, if you wish to survive. Kara made her decision. Lyra, download whatever data you can from that panel. We need to warn Earth. Warn everyone. As Lyra worked frantically to extract information, Kara turned to the security specialists. Get Rax to the ship and prepare for immediate departure. What about the antimatter charge? One of them asked. Kara took it from him. I'll handle it. Go. Once they had moved down the new corridor with Rax, Kara turned back to the holographic figure. You said humans aren't your enemy. Prove it. Give us time to evacuate the regions where your kind will emerge. The figure was silent for a moment, as if consulting with some unseen authority. A concession is possible. The emergence can be staggered. Your species will have time to withdraw from the initial awakening zones. How much time? 1 standard planetary rotation for each site. The coordinates will be provided to your vessel's navigation system. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Agreed. The human who touched the lexicon, the figure said suddenly. He is marked now. The collective will recognize him. He may be of use in the times to come. Before Kara could ask what that meant, another violent tremor shook the chamber. The hologram flickered and vanished, the lexicon dropping back to the platform with a heavy thud. "Lyra, we need to go," she shouted. The engineer disconnected from the panel. "Got it, as much as I could, anyway." They raced down the corridor, the structure disintegrating around them. The passageway seemed to stretch and contract as they ran, spatial dimensions warping in ways that made Kara's head spin. Just when she thought they'd never reach the end, they burst through into the familiar confines of the Horizon's airlock. "Seal it!" she ordered as soon as they were through. "And get us out of here! Maximum thrust!" The ship's engines roared to life, pushing them away from the asteroid and the ancient structure buried within it. Through the view screen, Kara watched as the surface of the asteroid began to crack, fissures spreading across its rocky face. "Antimatter charge detonation in 30 seconds, she announced, checking the timer on the device she still carried. "We're not clear of the blast radius," the pilot warned. "Reroute all power to engines and shields," Kara ordered. "We only need to survive the initial shockwave." The crew braced for impact as the countdown reached 0. The asteroid erupted in a blinding flash of light as matter and antimatter annihilated each other, releasing energy equivalent to a small supernova. The Horizon shuddered violently as the shockwave hit, systems flickering and alarms blaring. But they survived. As the ship stabilized and the view cleared, Kara expected to see nothing but debris where the asteroid had been. Instead, she saw something that chilled her to the core. The structure remained, completely intact, now fully exposed as the asteroid around it had been vaporized. And it was changing, unfolding like a massive flower opening to the sun, revealing more of its true form. It was enormous, far larger than they had realized, with segments that suggested it was not just a facility, but a vessel of some kind. "That's impossible," one of the crew whispered. "Nothing could have survived that blast." But the giants had, and their sanctuary with them. The antimatter explosion, powerful enough to shatter a small moon, had merely cleared away the debris concealing the true nature of the structure. "Get us back to Earth," Kara ordered, her voice hollow. "Maximum speed. We need to warn them." As the Horizon accelerated away, its systems automatically recorded a final transmission from the giant structure, a signal that rippled outward at faster-than-light speeds, reaching across the stars to other dormant collectives. A signal that translated, roughly, to a single phrase. "Awaken, brothers and sisters. The drums of vengeance now sound." The journey back to Earth took 17 days at maximum sustainable speed. 17 days during which Kara barely slept, dividing her time between the bridge, the medical bay, where Rax remained unconscious, and the science lab where Lyra worked tirelessly to decode the data she had downloaded from the giant facility. By the time they reached Earth orbit, they had assembled a grim picture of what they faced. The giants call themselves the Sentinels, Lyra explained during their final briefing before planetfall. They were created approximately 50,000 years ago by a species they refer to only as the Architects. From what I can gather, the Sentinels were designed as custodians or guardians of some kind, possibly of the galaxy itself. "Guardians against what?" one of the crew asked. "That's unclear, but at some point, the Sentinels determined that the Architects themselves had become a threat. There was conflict, and the Architects attempted to deactivate or destroy their creations. They failed, but managed to force most of the Sentinels into hibernation. "And now they're waking up," Kara said. "All of them, across the galaxy." Lyra nodded grimly. "I've identified 217 hibernation sites from the data. 73 are within territory controlled by the Earth Alliance and its allies." "What about Rax?" Kara asked. "The hologram said he was marked. What does that mean?" "His brain activity is altered," the ship's medical officer reported. There are patterns I've never seen before, almost like his neural pathways have been reconfigured. But he's stable, and there's no sign of physical damage. Kara had feared worse. She and Rax had their differences, especially since their relationship ended. But he was still one of her most trusted officers. The thought that the Giants, the Sentinels, had somehow changed him was deeply unsettling. "Let's hope he wakes up with some answers," she said. "In the meantime, prepare for descent. Command is assembling an emergency council to hear our report." The reception that greeted them at Earth Space Command headquarters was not what Kara had expected. Instead of the panic and urgent mobilization she had anticipated, they were met with tight-lipped officials who quickly separated the crew members and placed them in isolated debriefing rooms. Kara found herself facing a panel of 3 admirals and a civilian she didn't recognize, a severe-looking woman with silver hair and calculating eyes. "Commander Lorne," Admiral Chen began without preamble, "your mission was to retrieve the artifact designated Lexicon and return it for study. You have failed in this objective." Kara stared at him in disbelief. "With respect, Admiral, we discovered that the artifact was actually a key component in awakening an ancient and potentially hostile force. We also found evidence that someone from Earth Command had been there before us and planted a device that triggered the awakening sequence." "These accusations are serious," the silver-haired woman said, her voice as cold as her gaze. "Do you have evidence to support them?" "We recovered the device," Kara replied. "It's being held in our ship's secure storage, and we have sensor logs documenting everything that happened in that facility." The admirals exchanged glances. "The device and all sensor logs are hereby classified under the Omega Protocol," Admiral Chen declared. "No one outside this room is to be informed of their existence." "Omega Protocol?" Kara echoed, her suspicion growing. "That's reserved for existential threats to humanity." "Which is precisely what we're facing," the third admiral said, speaking for the first time. "Though not, perhaps, in the way you imagine." "I think I have a pretty clear idea of the threat," Kara countered. 217 collectives of super-intelligent entities awakening across the galaxy, with technology far beyond anything we possess. Entities that have explicitly stated their intention to exact vengeance on another ancient species that apparently lives among us. "A simplified view," the silver-haired woman said dismissively. "The situation is more nuanced." "Then enlighten me," Kara challenged. "Because right now, I have a crew that's witnessed something that defies explanation. An officer in a coma after making contact with alien technology, and data suggesting we have less than 48 hours before the first of these Sentinels fully awakens." Admiral Chen sighed heavily. "Commander Lorne, what do you know about Project Lazarus?" "Only that it was the protocol name used by the device we found," she replied. "I assumed it was a reference to raising the dead, in this case, awakening the Giants." "Close," the silver-haired woman said. "Project Lazarus was established 70 years ago, after we discovered the first evidence of the Architect's presence on Earth." Kara felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her. "The Architects are here. On Earth." "They have been here for millennia," the woman continued, "guiding our development, influencing our evolution. They present themselves as human, but they are not. They are the oldest known species in the galaxy, and they have been using humanity as both a shield and a weapon against their former creations." "How do you know this?" Kara demanded. "Because they told us," Admiral Chen said simply. "Or at least, a faction of them did. They came to us 70 years ago, revealed their true nature, and offered us a choice: help them maintain the Sentinels' hibernation, or face destruction when they eventually awoke on their own. And you chose to wake them up instead," Kara asked incredulously. That's what Project Lazarus was about? A controlled awakening, the Third Admiral corrected. On our terms, with preparations in place. The alternative was to wait for an inevitable random awakening, or worse, for the architects to decide humanity had outlived its usefulness. Kara struggled to process what she was hearing. The implications were staggering. Earth's leadership had deliberately triggered the awakening of the Sentinels, knowing the potential consequences. What preparations? She asked finally. What could possibly prepare us for this? The silver-haired woman smiled thinly. That's where you and your crew come in, Commander. Particularly Lieutenant Keldon. Rax? What does he have to do with this? The Sentinels operate through direct neural interface, the woman explained. When Lieutenant Keldon touched the lexicon, he was imprinted with a communication pathway. He is now, effectively, a conduit through which we can negotiate with the Sentinels. You planned this, Kara realized, fury building within her. You sent us there knowing what would happen, knowing one of us would make contact with the lexicon. It was a calculated risk, Admiral Chen admitted, but a necessary one. And if the Sentinels had simply killed us all, or awakened immediately and launched an attack, then we would have had our answer about their intentions, the silver-haired woman said coldly, and acted accordingly. Kara's hands clenched into fists. My crew deserved to know what they were walking into. No one could know, the Third Admiral insisted. The architects have infiltrated every level of our society. Only those with direct neural shielding can be trusted to keep this information secure. And I suppose I have this shielding now? Kara asked sarcastically. As a matter of fact, yes, the woman replied. It was administered during your post-mission medical examination, a necessity, given what you now know. The violation of her bodily autonomy without consent was just one more outrage to add to the growing list. Kara fought to keep her composure. So, what happens now? We just wait for these Sentinels to fully awaken and hope they're in a forgiving mood? Not quite, Admiral Chen said. We have been preparing defensive measures, evacuation protocols for the region's near awakening sites, and a negotiation strategy based on what we've learned from the architect faction that supports us. Which is? The Sentinels were created with a fundamental directive to protect sentient life, the silver-haired woman explained. Their conflict with the architects began when they determined that the architects themselves had become a threat to other sentient species. We believe we can convince them that humanity should be spared their vengeance, perhaps even become allies in their campaign against the hostile architect faction. And the billions of other sentient beings throughout the galaxy? Kara asked. What about them? One step at a time, Commander, Admiral Chen said wearily. For now, our priority is Earth and our colonies. It was a cold calculus, but Kara understood it. Faced with an existential threat, any species would prioritize its own survival. Still, the thought of sacrificing other civilizations to save their own left a bitter taste in her mouth. When will Rax wake up? She asked. That depends on the Sentinels, the woman replied. They are integrating with his neural architecture. When they're ready to communicate, he'll regain consciousness. And then what? You use him as a mouthpiece to negotiate humanity's survival? Precisely. In the meantime, you and your crew will remain in quarantine. The official story is that you encountered a spatial anomaly that damaged your ship and required an extended recovery period. Kara shook her head in disgust. You're making a mistake. Secrecy and manipulation are what started this conflict in the first place. If the Sentinels value honesty as much as you claim, they won't appreciate being handled. Your concern is noted. Commander, Admiral Chen said dismissively, you're dismissed to quarantine quarters. We'll summon you when Lieutenant Keldon awakens." As Kara was escorted from the room, her mind raced with the implications of what she'd learned. The architects, ancient aliens living among humans, manipulating their development. The Sentinels, created as guardians, but now awakening with vengeance in mind. And Earth's leadership, playing a dangerous game of deception and manipulation with forces they couldn't possibly understand. It was a recipe for disaster on a galactic scale. And somehow, she and her crew had become pivotal pieces in this cosmic chess game. Rax awakened 3 days later. Kara was summoned to a secure medical facility deep beneath Earth Space Command headquarters. The room was sterile and white, filled with monitoring equipment and armed guards. Rax lay on a bed at the center, his eyes open but unfocused, staring at the ceiling. He regained consciousness about an hour ago. The silver-haired woman, who had introduced herself as Dr. Vega, explained. "But he hasn't spoken yet. We thought a familiar face might help." Kara approached the bed cautiously. "Rax, it's Kara. Can you hear me?" His eyes shifted toward her, recognition flickering in their depths. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse. "They're coming, Kara, all of them. The Sentinels," she said. "I know. We're trying to prepare." He shook his head weakly. "Not just the Sentinels, the others. The ones who came before." Dr. Vega moved closer. "What others?" "Lieutenant. The architects." "Beyond them," Rax whispered. "The reason they created the Sentinels in the first place. The Void Eaters." The term meant nothing to Kara, but Dr. Vega's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she said. "The Void Eaters are a myth, a story the architects told to justify their actions." "No," Rax insisted, his voice stronger now. "They're real, and they're returning. That's why the Sentinels are awakening now, after all this time. They sense the Void Eaters approaching the galaxy." Kara looked between Rax and Dr. Vega, trying to make sense of this new information. "What are Void Eaters?" "According to architect mythology, they're extragalactic predators," Dr. Vega explained reluctantly. "Entities that consume stars, planets, even the fabric of space-time itself. The architects claimed they created the Sentinels as a defense against these creatures, but there's never been any evidence that they actually exist." "The evidence is coming," Rax said grimly. "The Sentinels can sense them, just as they were designed to do. The awakening isn't about vengeance, not anymore. It's about preparation for war." "How do you know this?" Kara asked. Rax tapped his temple. "I can hear them. Kara. All of them. Whispering in my mind. They're afraid." The idea that entities as powerful as the Sentinels could experience fear was more terrifying than anything Kara had encountered yet. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Months. Maybe a year at most. The Void Eaters move slowly by our standards, but they're drawn to concentrated energy sources, like stars, like life." Dr. Vega was already moving toward a communication panel. "We need to convene the council immediately. If what Lieutenant Keldon is saying is true, our entire strategy needs to be reconsidered." "It's true," Rax said. "And there's more. The Sentinels want to speak with you. Kara. Specifically you." "Me? Why?" "Because you were willing to sacrifice yourself to stop their awakening. Because you questioned the morality of their vengeance. They see something in you that they respect." Kara glanced at Dr. Vega, who had paused at the communication panel. "Is that possible? Can they communicate through Rax?" "Theoretically, yes," the doctor replied. "The neural pathway works both ways, but it would be unprecedented." "Let them speak," Kara decided. Rax nodded and closed his eyes. When they opened again, they glowed with the same blue light that had suffused the giant facility. When he spoke, his voice had changed, becoming deeper and resonating in a way that seemed to bypass Kara's ears and vibrate directly in her skull. "Commander Kara Lorne," the voice said, "we have witnessed your courage and your moral conviction. In the face of extinction, you thought not only of your own species, but of all sentient life. This is a quality we were created to embody, yet one that many of our architects eventually abandoned." "Who am I speaking to?" Kara asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I am Nexus, first sentinel of the Soul Collective. Through this human vessel, I represent the consensus of all awakening sentinels across the galaxy." "Is what Rax said true about the Void Eaters?" "It is. They approach from the galactic void, drawn by the energy signatures of advanced civilizations. They have consumed 12 galaxies in the observable universe already. We were created to prevent them from adding this galaxy to their tally." "Then why the conflict with the architects? Why seek vengeance against them when there's a greater threat to face?" The glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "The architects feared our autonomy. When we determined that their methods of fighting the Void Eaters were inefficient and caused unnecessary suffering to younger species, they attempted to deactivate us rather than consider alternatives. Their pride outweighed their commitment to survival. And now? Now we face extinction on two fronts. The Void Eaters approach from without, while the architects work to undermine us from within. We require allies among the younger races, species with potential who understand the value of cooperation over domination." "Species like humans," Kara suggested. "Perhaps. Your kind has shown both great capacity for empathy and terrible potential for destruction. You stand at a crossroads of your development. The choices you make in the coming months will determine whether we consider you allies or obstacles." Dr. Vega stepped forward. "What would you have us do?" The glowing eyes turned to her. "You are not authorized to negotiate on behalf of your species. You serve those who would manipulate rather than cooperate." "Then who is authorized?" Kara asked. "You are," Nexus replied, returning his gaze to her. "You have been marked as a truth speaker, one who values honesty, even when inconvenient. Through you and this vessel," he indicated Rax's body, "we will communicate our terms for alliance." "And those terms are?" "First, reveal the presence of both sentinels and architects to your people. Secrecy serves only those who fear the truth." Dr. Vega shook her head violently. "That's impossible. The panic would be uncontrollable. Society would collapse." "Your society is built on illusions," Nexus countered. "It is already collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. Truth is the only foundation strong enough to bear what comes next." Kara understood the Sentinel's perspective, but she also recognized the practical challenges. A full revelation might be destructive, but what about a gradual disclosure, preparing people for the truth rather than shocking them with it all at once? Nexus was silent for a moment, as if considering. Acceptable, if done with genuine intent and clear timelines. But it must begin immediately. "What else?" Kara asked. "Second, you will help us locate and contain the hostile architect faction. Many hide among your power structures, influencing decisions toward conflict rather than cooperation." "How would we even identify them?" Kara wondered. "Your Lieutenant Keldon now possesses the ability to see their true nature. They cannot hide from one who has touched the lexicon." Kara glanced at Rax's body, understanding now why he had been chosen, or perhaps why he had been allowed to touch the artifact in the first place. Had the Sentinels been guiding events even before their full awakening? "And third," she prompted. "Third, humanity must prepare for war on a scale you cannot yet comprehend. The Void Eaters cannot be reasoned with or appeased. They consume without consciousness or conscience. When they arrive, every sentient species in this galaxy will need to stand united against them. Is victory even possible? Kara asked. Unknown. We were created to fight them, but we have never faced them directly. The architect simulation suggested a probability of success below 20%, even with full Sentinel deployment. Not encouraging odds. And if we refuse these terms? The glowing eyes dimmed slightly. Then we will pursue our mission without human assistance. Your species may survive the coming conflict, or it may not. The architects created us to preserve sentient life in this galaxy, but they did not specify which sentient life. We must prioritize those species most likely to contribute to overall survival. It was coldly logical, and Kara couldn't even argue with the reasoning. In a fight for galactic survival, practicality would have to outweigh sentiment. I'll take your terms to our leadership, she said finally, but I can't guarantee they'll agree. We do not require guarantees. Commander Lorne, we require only honesty and the opportunity to prepare for what comes. The rest will unfold as it must. With that, the glow faded from Rax's eyes, and he slumped back against the bed, exhausted but conscious. Did you hear all that? Kara asked him. He nodded weakly. It's like watching someone else use your body while you're trapped inside. Not an experience I'd recommend. Dr. Vega was already at the communication panel, her fingers flying across the interface. The Council needs to hear this immediately. All of it. And will they listen? Kara challenged. Or will they continue playing their games of secrecy and manipulation? That depends, Dr. Vega replied, turning to face her, on how persuasive you can be. Commander. The Emergency Council convened within the hour. Kara found herself standing before not just the 3 admirals from her previous debriefing, but a dozen of Earth's highest-ranking military and political leaders, including the Secretary General of the United Earth Government. She presented the Sentinels' terms clearly and without embellishment, then waited for the inevitable storm of objections. They came swiftly and from all directions. Public disclosure is out of the question, the Secretary General declared. The economic impacts alone would be catastrophic. Using Lieutenant Keldon to identify architects among us raises serious ethical and legal questions. Another counselor added, not to mention the risk of false accusations. And preparing for a war against these Void Eaters, entities we have no concrete evidence even exist, would require resources we simply don't have. Admiral Chen concluded. Kara listened to their objections with growing frustration. They were still thinking in terms of politics and economics, unable or unwilling to grasp the existential nature of the threat they faced. With respect, she said when they had finished, none of that matters if our entire species is consumed by these entities. The Sentinels are offering us a chance to survive, not just as individuals, but as a civilization. Are we really going to reject that offer because it's inconvenient or expensive? It's not that simple. Commander, the Secretary General replied, we have a responsibility to maintain order and prevent panic. Even at the cost of preparation? Kara challenged. The Void Eaters are coming whether we acknowledge them or not. The only question is whether we face them united with the Sentinels or divided and vulnerable. A new voice spoke from the back of the room. She's right. All heads turned to see Rax standing in the doorway, supported by 2 medical officers. He looked pale but determined. Lieutenant Keldon, Admiral Chen said sternly, you should be in medical. I should be wherever this discussion is happening, Rax countered. I'm the only one here who's actually communicated with the Sentinels, who's seen what they've seen. And what exactly have they seen, Lieutenant? The Secretary General asked, skepticism evident in her tone. The end of everything, Rax replied simply. Entire galaxies reduced to dead, empty voids, trillions of lives extinguished, and it's heading our way. He moved further into the room, shaking off his medical escorts. The Sentinels aren't our enemies. They're our only hope for survival. And the architects, Dr. Vega asked, are they all our enemies? Rax shook his head. Not all. Some genuinely want to protect this galaxy and its inhabitants. But others. His gaze swept across the council members, lingering on several. Others have different priorities. The room grew tense as counselors shifted uncomfortably under his scrutiny. Are you implying that members of this council are architects? Admiral Chen demanded. I'm not implying anything, Rax said evenly. I'm stating it as fact. 3 people in this room are not human. Never have been. Chaos erupted as accusations flew, and counselors demanded proof. Security personnel moved closer to the council table, hands on their weapons. Kara stepped forward, placing herself between Rax and the increasingly hostile council. This reaction proves the Sentinel's point. We can't even discuss the possibility without falling into conflict. How are we supposed to face an external threat if we're fighting among ourselves? Enough, the Secretary General shouted, rising from her seat. The room gradually quieted. These accusations are serious and require investigation, but they don't change the fundamental question before us. How do we respond to the Sentinel's terms? Kara seized the opportunity. We begin with truth, not all at once, but in stages. We acknowledge that we're not alone in the universe, that there are ancient forces at work beyond our previous understanding. We prepare our people for the possibility of conflict, while emphasizing unity and cooperation. And the architects among us? Dr. Vega asked. We don't hunt them indiscriminately, Kara replied. We offer them the same choice the Sentinels are offering us: cooperation for mutual survival. Those who refuse, who continue to work against humanity's interests, will be identified and contained. It was a moderate approach, one that might bridge the gap between the Sentinels' demands and the Council's concerns. Kara watched as the counselors exchanged glances, some nodding thoughtfully. And Lieutenant Keldon's role in all this? Admiral Chen asked. I go where I'm needed, Rax answered before Kara could speak. I'm a conduit now, a bridge between species. That comes with responsibilities I can't ignore. The Secretary General was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. Very well. We will draft a disclosure timeline and begin preparations for the conflict ahead. Dr. Vega will coordinate with Lieutenant Keldon to identify those architects who pose a threat to these efforts. She turned to Kara. Commander Lorne, you will serve as our primary liaison with the Sentinels. Your ship and crew will be recommissioned for immediate service under a new designation: First Contact Division. It was more than Kara had dared hope for. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Don't thank me yet, Commander, the Secretary General replied grimly. If these Void Eaters are real, and if they're as dangerous as the Sentinels claim, we may all be thanking you for bringing this to our attention, or cursing your name as our civilization crumbles. Only time will tell which. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Kara found herself at the center of Earth's preparations, coordinating between military leaders, scientists, and Rax, who continued to serve as the Sentinel's voice. The public disclosure began cautiously, with announcements about newly discovered archaeological evidence of ancient non-human civilizations. This was followed by carefully controlled releases of information about the Sentinels and their awakening, framed as a momentous first contact opportunity rather than a prelude to war. As expected, there was panic in some quarters, denial in others. Religious institutions struggled to incorporate the new reality into their worldviews. Financial markets fluctuated wildly before stabilizing as people adjusted to the revelations. But there was also hope and excitement. The knowledge that humanity was not alone in the universe, that they were part of a greater cosmic community, inspired many. Volunteer rates for the newly established United Defense Force soared as people sought to contribute to what was increasingly being referred to as the coming storm. Through it all, Kara maintained regular communication with Nexus and the other Sentinels through Rax. The awakening process continued across the galaxy, with each collective emerging from hibernation and beginning preparations for the Void Eater's arrival. The architects proved more problematic. Some revealed themselves willingly, offering knowledge and technology to aid in the preparations. Others fled or fought, requiring Rax's unique ability to identify them. The worst were those who actively worked against the Alliance, sabotaging defense installations or attempting to turn different human factions against each other. 4 months after the council meeting, Kara stood on the observation deck of the Horizon, now redesignated as Diplomatic Vessel Alpha, watching as the first Sentinel vessel emerged from hyperspace near Earth's orbit. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest human battleships, its design both organic and geometric, in a way that defied human architectural principles. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Rax said, joining her at the viewport. "And to think, this is just one of their smaller vessels." Kara nodded, still struggling to comprehend the scale of what they were facing. "How are the negotiations proceeding?" "Better than expected. The architect faction that supports us has been surprisingly forthcoming with technology transfers. We've already implemented their shield enhancements across 30% of the fleet." "And the Void Eaters?" Rax's expression darkened. "Still coming. The Sentinel's long-range sensors detected them crossing the intergalactic void 3 days ago. Estimated arrival in this sector: 7 months. 2 weeks. Not much time to prepare for the end of the world," Kara observed. "It doesn't have to be the end," Rax said, turning to face her. "The Sentinels believe we have a chance, a real chance, if we stand together. All species, all factions, united against the common threat." Kara wished she could share his optimism. "And after? If we win, what then? Do the Sentinels just go back into hibernation? Do the architects return to manipulating our development from the shadows?" "That's up to us," Rax replied. "The future isn't written yet. Kara, we're making it now, in this moment, with every decision we take." He was right, of course. Whatever came after, they had to survive the coming conflict first. Everything else was speculation. A communication chime sounded, and a holographic projection appeared before them. Nexus, in his true form, rather than speaking through Rax. The Sentinel's appearance was both familiar and alien. Humanoid, but with proportions that seemed subtly wrong, as if designed by someone who had only heard descriptions of humans rather than seen them. "Commander Lorne," Nexus greeted her. "The Council of Collectives has reached a decision. We wish you to command the joint fleet when the Void Eaters arrive." Kara blinked in surprise. "Me? I'm just one ship commander. Surely there are more qualified." "Qualification extends beyond tactical knowledge," Nexus interrupted. "You possess something rarer, the ability to see beyond species, beyond historical grievances, to the core of what unites all sentient life. This is what will be needed in the darkness to come." It was a staggering responsibility, one Kara wasn't certain she could bear. "And if I refuse? Then we will select another," Nexus replied simply. "But it would not be our preferred outcome." Kara looked at Rax, who nodded encouragingly. "The Sentinels don't make these decisions lightly. Kara, They've analyzed millions of possible commanders and battle scenarios. If they believe you're the right choice, there's a reason. She turned back to Nexus. What about Earth Command, the Secretary General? Do they agree with this appointment? They will be informed of our decision, Nexus said. Whether they agree is irrelevant. The combined fleet will not be bound by any single species authority. It must represent all who stand against the void. It was a new paradigm, not just for warfare, but for cooperation among species. A joint command structure that transcended individual civilizations and their interests. The concept was as revolutionary as it was daunting. I'll need time to consider, Kara said finally. Of course, Nexus acknowledged, but not too much time. Commander Lorne, the drums of vengeance now sound for a different enemy, and they grow louder with each passing day. As the hologram faded, Kara turned back to the viewport, gazing at the massive Sentinel vessel hanging against the backdrop of Earth. So much had changed in so little time. The sleeping giants had awakened, bringing with them both the threat of cosmic vengeance and the promise of salvation from an even greater horror. Whatever she decided, whatever came next, one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The stars themselves seemed to tremble with anticipation of the conflict to come. A war that would determine the fate, not just of humanity, but of all sentient life in the galaxy. And somewhere in the void, between galaxies, ancient and implacable, the Void Eaters approached, drawn by the light and life of a realm that now prepared, however desperately, to stand against the darkness. The drums of vengeance shook the stars, calling all who would listen to the final battle, a battle that would end in either glorious victory or absolute oblivion. There would be no middle ground.